Hello, everyone. It's Charlene Lee, and I'm excited today to talk about how organizations and their leaders can prepare for generative AI. And the reason I'm excited to talk about this is I've been giving talks all around North America. I was in Mexico City, I was in Miami, Orlando, for the past couple of weeks, and I'm doing more speeches this coming week. And the thing that I keep hearing from people is, how do we get started? How do we prepare? How do we get ready? Because there's just a level of a lack of understanding of what is the first thing we have to do, second thing, third thing. And as many of you know, I'm writing a book to talk about all those different steps. But I also wanted to share just some initial things that you can do with your organization to just get everybody up to speed. And I just focus on these three things, and they have been very helpful for people. And so I figured I'd share them. So I would love for you to share as you're coming in, of course, where you're coming from, but also share how you are preparing for generative AI, and especially for the kind of paradigm shift it's going to have. And I think this is one of the biggest issues that we're finding with people is, how are they thinking about generative AI? Are they thinking about it as a technology, and so therefore treating it like a technology? Or are they thinking about it as a paradigm shift, something that is going to be extremely transformational? And as a result, are approaching generative AI and this whole space from a different perspective. And our research has found that organizations that have these two different mindsets approach generative AI in a very different way. And I absolutely do believe that it is a paradigm shift. We'll go through that in a second. But also, the ones who look at it that way are going about it in a very different way. So let's get into that. So I will have some slides today. So let me get that link up here. And just want to let you know that those slides are available. You can download them as you like, and I'll put them in comments. Unfortunately, it doesn't go over to, it doesn't move over to LinkedIn. So if anybody is watching on LinkedIn and can do me a favor and take it from the presentation and put it into LinkedIn, I would appreciate it. My friend Jay is not here today. So, so if somebody else can do that, I would really appreciate it. All right, so let's get into it. So want to go through very quickly why generative AI is a paradigm shift, because unless you look at it this way, and instead of thinking about it as a technology, then you won't have the mindset to have to take these moves and prepare. So again, I do believe that AI is so simple to use. Anybody with a browser can get access to it, and it's free. And again, it's not about the technology. The technology itself is very straightforward. It is about how we interact with it that creates the power. And so it could just sit there and do absolutely nothing, again, like any technology. But it's how we decide to use it, how we approach it, the problems we choose to direct this incredible technology at, that determines that power. So it's not built into this general purpose LLMs, these large learning models, ChatGPT, all the usual suspects in that space. They are sitting there and waiting for you to interact with it. And that's how you create the power. And unless you know how to interact with it, there aren't buttons to push, there aren't processes to follow. So it's a little bit of a mysterious black box that's sitting there. But the power is that it democratizes our ability to create. I can't draw word beans, and I can create amazing illustrations now. I have some basic data skills, but now I can analyze deep, really big data sets with just questions and queries using natural language. And it also allows people who already create content to do effort. I've already found this in my work as a writer and as a researcher, that I can do so much more work in a shorter amount of time with less effort, that allows me then to think bigger things and do better things with the time that I have. It also is a paradigm shift because it's requiring us to rethink a lot of things that we've held true. Things like, what's ethical in this space, what's right and wrong, what are some legal guidelines? I'm sorry, it's a typo here, but legal frameworks that are being rethought. Things like copyright. How does that exist? Because now these engines are creating art based on other people's art. And so what are the copyright? Our copyright laws were written hundreds of years ago. So they don't apply necessarily to this space. And then what are the societal norms that are being challenged too as well? And then finally, of course, generative AI is impacting the way we work. It's automating tasks and therefore recreating and redescribing jobs. The way we do our work is changing and it's going to transform career paths, really change the direction of them, what constitutes a career ladder in different functions, and even create completely new jobs and careers. So, highly transformative, big, huge paradigm. What are we doing to prepare for it? And in my talks with people, I go around and I ask people, so how are you thinking about these things? And I ask people, how transformative do you think generative AI is going to be? And the vast majority of hands will go up. And then I ask, how many of you are using it every day? And all of those hands go down. And so it's one thing to know that it's going to be transformative. It's another thing to actually use it, to do something with it, and very importantly, to lead with it. And I think this is what we need to address in that if we believe it's going to be transformative, we believe that it's going to be paradigm shifting, we need to start acting as if it's going to be that way. So a couple of things that I believe so strongly is that there are a couple things that are happening. So again, most leaders do not have direct hands-on experience with AI. Typically, about 15% of the audience as I speak with, and these are even AI focused events. So these are leaders who are going to learn about AI. And even there, very few people have direct experience and are using it every day. And again, not even every day. I just ask how many of you use it in a way that it has transformed the way you work. And again, very few hands go up. Also, a lot of the organizations are treating generative AI as an enterprise technology. And so they're asking it, so how, again, it's being IT led with not a lot of business input. They believe it can be centrally deployed and controlled, which is not the case. Again, if anyone with a browser can use it. And they're very focused on ROI and total cost of ownership. So, how much is it going to cost us? How do we justify paying $30 a person for Microsoft Copilot or $20 a person, whatever it is? Again, very expensive. How do we justify that? Again, the use cases that is being tested right now are very small and safe use cases because the technology is changing. People are feeling very unsafe, not secure about how to go about using all of this technology. So you have this vicious circle that is sitting there going around and saying, these are all the reasons why we're not moving into this in the way that we need to look at it as a transformative force. Because our lack of leadership on the business side, IT is looking at it as traditional IP, and then overall, we just feel really insecure in a space that feels fraught with risk and uncertainty and lots of dangers everywhere. So, how do you unwrap all of this? How do we get started with this Gordian knot? Where do we cut it so that we can actually begin? Well, this is what I want to focus on today. So, the very first thing I believe you have to do, and these are the three ways, is you have to create a secure, safe place where you can literally play with generative AI, where your top leaders can develop and have exposure to it and know that it is safe for them to go in there and that they can mess around with it. And for the most part, they can stay out of trouble, especially with some basic guidelines. Again, I'll go into more detail about how to create those guidelines. And then the second thing to do, and this seems a little crazy, but you want to train your top two levels of your executive teams on how to use this. The reason why is if you want to treat it as a transformative force, if you want to look at generative AI as something that will shift paradigms, you need your biggest, most strategic thinkers in the organization to experience it hands on. Now, this is not expecting them to be rocket scientists, to be experts on generative AI. It is literally to get their hands a little bit dirty so they can experience how transformative it could be. And we'll go into details about how to do that. And then the third thing is to share the learnings and a very important concept, treat your prompts as IP. Again, we'll go into all of this. So the very first thing I would say is securing a playground. And by the way, please ask any questions. I'm going through this material very quickly. There's a lot to cover here. So the first thing is to set up a generative AI playground. And this is the idea that you set up a large learning model and just choose a generic one that's out there. I think the easiest one right now, again, this is not forever, but right now, ChatGPT for Teams is a really good option for people because what it does, it puts everything that you do behind a sort of firewall. Basically, it's not completely secure. So that's a very important thing to know, but it does keep your queries, everything that you ask ChatGPT out of the model. So anything you put into that model will not be used to train ChatGPT. And that's very important because you can worry about, well, is this email that I'm writing? Is this strategic plan that I'm writing, this marketing plan? Where is it going? And ChatGPT for Teams ensures that it's staying behind that your quote firewall and not being used to train the model. That said, I would still not put any personally identifiable information, any customer data into the model at this point until you can truly secure it with your data team, your security team. Make sure that compliance is being done so. But for general purposes at this point, this is a very good solution. And it's $25 per user per month. You can usually pay for it with a credit card, and it's really straightforward. So this is about $5 more than just GPT Pro Plus, and there are lots of other models out there. And like Claude or Gemini Pro are some of my favorites. Perplexity AI is fantastic. But I think if you were going to get just one model, this is probably the best one right now to be able to enable a group of people inside your company to be able to use these tools. So that's the first thing. The next thing you can do then is to get some guidelines in place. Now, in our research, we found that the vast majority of companies do not have a formal generative AI policy. And I will talk about how to actually do that. But in lieu of having a formal policy, in other words, you don't want to have to wait. You can use some guidelines around using critical thinking. And even if you have a generative AI policy, you should be including these broad guidelines about just use your head, use your brain, use your guts, and be a critical thinker when using generative AI because we know it's not perfect. It can get very opinionated, it can make up things. And so you need to be on your guard and constantly checking. So pause and reflect. Does it sound right? Does it look right? Does it match your expectations? You have a gut, you have professional instincts. Use them when you're using generative AI. Don't turn them off. Fact check like crazy. Trust but verify is what I like to say and do quick checks to verify the facts that it may be pulling up. And explore and choose. Don't accept the very first thing that ChatGPT or any other engine can give you. Ask it to justify how did you come up with that answer? What are some other options to pursue? Ask it to and phrase it in a different way to understand, well, is this the best way? And then you decide, given all the options that are available to you, what is the best one. So, this is a way to think about the results that you have and not turn off your brain because it can be very tempting to say, oh, here's the answer. I'll just copy and paste that into my email, use that in my presentation. You can't necessarily assume it's great and fantastic, but check everything. So I'll just give a quick example of this. I use all of these tools constantly to review what I'm writing, but instead of asking it to just rewrite it, I use it to give me an opinion, analyze it, what's its strengths, what's its weaknesses, and it's acting like a development editor for me when I'm writing. I use it as a researcher too, and as a researcher, I ask it to be really careful to make sure it's actually real, to double check their work. Things like that actually matter. But then I also just go back and check everything because I don't necessarily trust it, no matter how good it sounds, that it's actually real and verifiable. So I ask it multiple times and then pick and choose what I believe is to be right. All right, let me go on and talk a little bit more about how to develop a responsible AI use policy. And I have lots of resources. There is this URL there, and let me get the URL too as well. Let me find the right one. There we go. And I'll put it into the comments, so hopefully you can see those two as well. And here, the responsible AI use policy, again, this is a starting point. Always, always, always go back to your legal team and verify with them, but you already have a lot of policies like your data policy, your data use policy, your privacy policies, your security and safety, cybersecurity. Use those as starting points to address the first two elements of responsible AI use policy. You then also have to address how transparent you're going to be. How much are you going to disclose that you're using AI? And then accountability. When something goes wrong, who do you call? And what kind of oversight is there going to be? And then, very importantly, have a view on the ethics. And in some cases, that may be an adjacent or completely different policy to your responsible AI use policy. But because the way we make decisions are going to change, how do your values inform how you're going to make decisions around the use of generative AI? And also, how are you going to comply with different regulations that are coming up? So there are lots of questions and resources. I put a few of them into this link. It is just a simple document on Google. It says I'm just pulling it and I'll just keep updating it as I have. But it's a bit.ly/AI policy resources. So it is again a starting point, but you get an idea of how to think about the responsible use of AI. And a few weeks ago, I had Olivia Gamblin on my live stream and also wrote about how do you think about the ethics of AI. So that's a fantastic live stream and article that I wrote up if you want more details around that. All right, I'm going to pause for a second because I see a bunch of questions that may have come up. Let's see. I just have a question here from Jay. It's a paradigm shift. How will organization hierarchy changes? Will it democratize workplaces? Will it be allowed to transform organizations if it inverts the power structure? I can always count on you, Jay, to be asking questions around again, just how is power going to change? With any new realm of technology, we saw with internet shifting power, we saw with social shifting power, mobile, digital transformation, and generative AI is no different. The difference is it's even more going to reduce the power distance inside of companies because now where it used to be the inner sanctum that could have access to data and AI and all these powerful tools, now that power is in the hands of anyone. And so, who are you going to give that power to? And who's going to have access to that data and what can they do with it? Which is why data governance becomes such an important issue inside of organizations. Who has access to all of that precious customer data? How can they use it? In what areas with these generative AI tools? And what do they do with it? What's their responsibility going to be? What's the transparency you want to have? Which is why all of these responsible AI policies are so important. Now, once you start writing them, the only way you can truly write them is if you use the tools and understand what the implications are. And again, you can't use those tools unless you feel you can be safe and use them, which is why we're trying to address that today. But you can't, I strongly believe you cannot write that responsible use AI policy unless you get your hands into it and experience it and do so in a safe and secure way, which is why we're doing this today. All right, so that's a great question, Jay. I absolutely believe, again, this is one of those big paradigms in that the way our organizations work and our future of work is going to absolutely change. In fact, that's my live stream for next week. So I'll talk about that in just a second. All right, let me get back to this area here. And the second thing you want to do is to make sure you start training your top two levels of executives. Now that you have a safe place to play, you have some basic guidelines. Now you want to start training your top two levels of executives on how to use this. And what I have found to be the most successful way is to ask them to do things they already do using generative AI instead. So if they're going to write an email, then use generative AI to write that email. One exercise that I find we oftentimes have to do, unfortunately, is to write sympathy letters to people. people who are sick, not feeling well, a relative or a close friend passed away, and you want to write them an email, and those are just hard to do. So you can put into generative AI, into ChatGPT, and say, I want to write a sympathy letter, mention these things, and craft it for me. And it'll do and again, it's just a shortcut way. It's not any less heartfelt, but it just gives you those language. I think of it as breaking the tyranny of the blank page. So it gives you a starting point. So do the things that you would normally do that are hard, and hopefully it makes it a little bit easier to get through. You can create images and logos for presentations, or for as a fun way for a team engagement. You can analyze data. Again, whatever data you have available. And my favorite is to use it as a thought partner. Here's a point of view of how I think about the world. Here's a strategy or a plan or an approach, an editorial that I may be writing. So whatever that is, create that first draft, put it into it, and say, give me the pros and cons of this. What are the arguments that I'm not thinking about? Ask me questions around this that come up. And so our opportunities to tap into the best and brightest minds are potentially right there in these generative AI tools. And so use it as an opportunity in a confidential way. I know that some people use it to say, I'm in this sticky situation with an employee or a manager. Here's a situation. What are ways that I can approach this that I may not be thinking about? So again, that thought partner could be extremely valuable. And I have these exercises, some very simple ones inside of this link. And so I'm just going to put them into the chat. You can see them also. It's bit.ly/AI dash exercises, where you can find and see the places, ways, some very basic exercises, like step by step, this is how you do them. And I would love your feedback on all of this content, what works, what doesn't work, because literally I'm putting them into the book that Katja Welsh and I are writing right now. All right, deep breath. We'll do the last one, which is one I'm very excited about. I'm just checking to see if there are any questions. All right, we have a few minutes left. If you have any questions, put them into chat and I'll do my best to address them. All right, last area, simple idea, and that is to create a place where people can collaborate. So create a channel on Slack or Teams or whatever tool that you're using. Hopefully you're using something to do internal collaboration, and use that place for people to ask questions, to share what they're learning in experiences, all the concerns that they may have. This is, again, not an easy space to move into, but also use that to capture some of these best practices and take those best practices and put them in a place where everyone can access them. It could be a Google Doc. It could be a SharePoint page. It could be a wiki. Whatever it is, have a place where people can find all of the prompts that they're using that work in the context of your company. I'll give an example. One of the things you can do is, again, these prompts can take up a lot of space. You can upload, for example, your marketing plan for a product. And this is the marketing plan that everyone can use. And you can use it to say, how can this marketing plan be used and tailored for a particular customer set? And that prompt can be organized, tested, and you find that this is a great way to set up that prompt. So we get great answers, and all you have to do is change the customer set. So that is a best practice. That is prompts being saved, and it's treating your prompts as incredibly valuable intellectual property inside of your company. The worst thing you could do is everyone develop their own little silos of how they use these tools rather than create this collective intelligence, this collective wisdom of how to use generative AI. Again, we're trying to turn something that is an individually used tool right now into something that is enterprise ready. And these initial uses, being able to track them and treating those prompts as incredibly valuable IP is a very important step in getting started. So those are some initial ideas and steps that I would put out there. Again, the first step is to make sure you get a safe, secure playground, as safe as you can. That'll do until you can get an enterprise grade tool in place. It takes time, it takes money. So initially, just get something that's safe and get some guidelines in place so people can feel like they can do it safely. Get your top two levels of executives trained because they are the ones who can understand how paradigm shifting and strategic this tool can be. And then third, treat all of the prompts as valuable IP, capture it, store it, use it, refine it. One extension of this is to create your custom GPTs. Again, you can do that inside of ChatGPT for Teams, and you can save those and share those across your organization. So you could have a marketing GPT, a sales analysis one, you could have a strategy thought partner one. So these are some ways that you can start customizing GPTs to be shared again as a resource across the organization. All right, let's see. I have a question here from Jay. Does AI constrain imagination? I think it's just the opposite. The best way to actually make the most use of generative AI is imagination, because the only constraint we have right now is not the technology. The technology is fantastic. It's our experience and the ways that we can decide to use generative AI that is holding us back. And so the best users of generative AI would be the ones who are exercising their imagination at crazy dimensions. Sure, it'll reduce your ability to be creative, to have to use those exercises. But when our from the research that we're seeing, it's doing just the opposite. You can, of course, get lazy and have it do the heavy lifting. But what we're seeing is most people are using it to take care of the mundane, tedious things that keep them from being creative, that keep them from using their imagination. So I think you can choose how you want to use generative AI. You could use it to just take care of the burden so that you can just go off and do things that you otherwise than you work, or you can choose for it to give you that base level of capabilities and then be able to take your imagination and use it in new and different ways. All right, great questions today. All right, I want to go over and just talk about what I'm doing coming up. So next week, on the 27th, I think I may have the dates wrong. I'm sitting here going, wait, which days is it? So next Tuesday at 9 o'clock, as my usual time, I'll be talking about how generative AI is going to impact the future of work. I did a course on LinkedIn about about this particular topic, so I'll be talking about that. And also, I want to just make known that LinkedIn does have over 200 courses on generative AI now open and free to the public. So if you want to increase your level of understanding around generative AI, then this is a fantastic resource to do that. Again, I hope that you will join me for that conversation. I will be speaking next week at the I4CP, the Institute for Corporate Productivity, which is a leading next generation HR organization that does tons of research on the space. And I'll be speaking about the future of work and how HR will be transforming. So it's very much top of mind for me right now. I think that's it for now. I just want to make sure again that if you are looking for the slides, you can get it at my site, charlenelee.com/prepare for AI. There are lots of resources on that landing page as well, where you can get, again, links to some of those resources. I also highly recommend always Coursera's course for executives, Navigating Generative AI, the CEO Playbook. There's a link to that in those resources. Again, Jeff Mangiacotta was on here a couple weeks ago talking about how he uses it as a CEO of an organization. And I hope that can be inspirational for some of your leaders that, hey, Jeff isn't extraordinary anyway, but he uses it in such a strategic way. It is fascinating to watch that and to hear him go through the course. All right, that's what I have for today. I will hopefully see you next week. In the meantime, play with this. I would love to hear from you, how it's working, what's not working. Give me feedback on the resources, and I'll talk to you next week to talk about AI and the future of work. Thanks. Bye-bye.